show you some really convincing evidence. All the stuff that I've come to believe in, I use what's called I call it logical progression. And what I mean by that is you take a truth that you know to be true. Okay. Weston Price's book, I've read critiques online on it's quackwatch.com. You guys ever heard of that? And if you just read, you just saw what I just showed you, and you read what they wrote on Quackwatch. And Quackwatch is one of these popular. It's very well known. It's very popular. It's paid for by the pharmaceutical companies, and their critique is so small-minded and so pathetic once you just see what you just saw here. And that's how they manipulate us. Okay. And another class is going to be on how they do that. How do they control public opinion? How do they control public knowledge? How do they manipulate those types of things and make you think a certain thing is true when it's not? You know, I don't know how many times I've heard that we died at violent deaths at 35 years of age. Okay, and that's just not the case. It's not true. Price talked about Swiss running around, Swiss men that were 90 years, 95 years of age. They didn't even know how old they were, running around the sides of mountains like billy goats. You know, there's Quechua Indians in South America. We saw some of the Quechua Indians that I showed you in that thing from Price, that they lived to 120 years of age. You know, I'm 34. You know, I would be classified as almost like an 80-year-old guy. You know, and I don't feel 80 years old. You know, so you know, you just got to open your mind and realize that a lot of stuff we've been told is not exactly true. We've been manipulated, we've been lied to, and there's reasons why I believe. I'm not going to get into that. That's another time. But if you guys have any questions for me, if you're interested in finding a little bit more about what I do, like I said, I specialize in nutrition. I help people with nutrition, finding the right types of diets. I also help people with postural, controlling their posture. Because of our inactivity, the lifestyles that we live today, a lot of people have postural distortion problems. They have forward head posture that creates strain and stress in their back, in their neck, in their pelvis, in their lower back. Those types of pains can be corrected through aligning the body through exercises. It's kind of like, if you go to a chiropractor and they look at you and they say a bone's out of alignment, well, one of the things they'll do is they'll manipulate that bone to get it back in alignment. Well, you got to think what's attached to a bone is a muscle, right? So if a muscle if you go to the chiropractor and he fixes that bone, but then you don't re-educate the nervous system on how to use that muscle correctly, then you haven't corrected the problem, then the muscles cause a faulty pattern, and they end up pulling that bone back out of position. And that's because that pattern's stored in your brain. So you have to re-educate that pattern in your brain in order to keep that correction to stabilize. And that's why people go back to chiropractors and back to chiropractors and back to chiropractors over and over and over again. It's because the chiropractor hasn't fixed the actual source of the problem, which is a muscular problem. But then a lot of times, I need chiropractors. I wish Lisa had stayed around. I think she had to take off or something. But she is a massage therapist. She was sitting in that seat right there. She is amazing. I've had her help me with clients that have had surgeries and all kinds of problems in their neck, and she's fixed people. I've had people with knee problems that they've had for 5-6 years, and she's been able to help me correct them, within a couple months, and they're walking around without knee pain. It's pretty cool stuff. So, like I said, if any of you are interested, I want to send out that email list, and let me see what's in that. Let me grab that back. Can you turn the lights on, Steve? Thanks. Oh, any questions, by the way? Yeah, sorry.
What is a chip practitioner?
That's a very complicated question. It's kind of like what I was just talking about. I was trained through a guy named Paul Chek. In fact, most of the stuff you guys heard tonight comes from Paul Chek. I mean, I'm almost, a lot of this stuff that I've wrote down here and kept track of is from Paul Chek. And so I've studied him, a lot, and I found out about him about 4 years ago, and then I started studying him, and I was a personal trainer I've been a personal trainer for 10 years. The first 6 years, I was a typical personal trainer.
So it's basically practicing his principles.
Yeah. But I mean, his principles are based off of our development. He didn't make them up. He just discovered that. The body. Like for instance, if I have someone with the forward head posture, because they're typing on the computers all day long, well, that's going to create stress in the neck. And as that neck gets tighter, those muscles can pull forward more and more and more. And so this tightness right through there is going to create stress in the body, and it's also emotional stress too. It could be caused emotionally, and it could exacerbate emotional problems. If you're tense through here, you're constantly trying to get that, or you're fighting headaches and stuff like that. Just things to do is to strengthen the body that'll line even better, so that you have less stress in your head. You know, so that's kind of one of the things I do.
On project and work.
Yeah, Terry right here. Terry's been a climber for quite a while. Has it been like a couple of years?
A little over a year.
A little over a year. Yes, sir.
Is doing things like eating according to your blood type any good?
I'm going to talk about eating according to your blood type next time. I think it's got some very good principles, but I think it's very simplistic view. I think there's a lot more components of the human body that affect our metabolism and affect how we utilize nutrition. So I think it's an important part. It's a piece of the puzzle, but I don't think it's the overall puzzle. And that's what we'll talk about next time. Like, we're going to get into detail on that. I'm going to talk about the science behind how you determine individual diet, how we all need individual diets. You know, there's no such thing as a one-size-fits-all diet. You know, same thing for an exercise program. That's what you're asking me about that. Like, what I do as a check practitioner is let me show you. I brought some more tools here actually. Like this is called an inclinometer. And I'll use this to measure like hip position. So like if I have, you know, this, I'll measure like the ASIS and PSIS. There's 2 points in the body or landmarks. Okay, and if I have too much of a hip tilt here, then I know that I've got increased stress in the lower back. I've probably got tight hip flexors, you know, and that my core is turned off, which means my belly button's protruding here. Okay, you know, you can see that even the fittest people in the gym. Okay, they'll walk around like this. They have ripped abs. They're like, you know, doing body shows or fitness shows, and they're ripped and shredded, but yet their belly sticks out like this. You see it all the time. That's faulty training.
Internal shell.
And I'm not against bodybuilders. I just think that you know, that there's certain ways of training that you can add into bodybuilding.
Okay, I'm just saying
Yeah. Well, I mean, they do amazing stuff. I mean, she did an amazing show just recently.
Yeah.
Or did you qualify for nationals?
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing.
It's a temporary component. What you teach is lifetime.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's interesting about a lot of those show muscles that people are going for. When you have the two different systems of how your core works, and most people just develop the movement system, they never develop a stabilization system. But the reason that we know that's the case is because 85% of the adult population suffers from back pain, and that's why. Because people don't have the ability to stabilize, so that means people are that much more susceptible to hurting themselves doing anything.
Steve, by the way, is another personal trainer, and he's a very open-minded, wise trainer too.